Hello, live stream. Welcome aboard. If you're watching this in the replay, you can fast forward about 8.5 minutes and you'll be live, or you can just hang out here and watch the live stream start in the pre-show. If I can get my headphones on. My in-ear monitors. There we go. Test 2, 3. That's nice and loud. That's a little too loud. Let's turn myself down. That's enough of me talking to myself. Let's change the website. If you are watching this on the YouTube, you may want to head over to professormesser.com/live so you can participate in the live chat, which currently is nobody in there because I just turned it on. So if you're watching this on my site at professormesser.com/live, you can refresh the page and the chat will be at the bottom, or it will be as part of the menus at the bottom of the site. Now, I said I was going to change the website, didn't I? I can't talk and do everything at the same time. So then I have to be quiet so I can do things. And then we'll do a check of all the cameras. I think they're ready to go. Haven't checked them yet, though. This could be a disaster. It's raining like crazy right now. So we might lose power. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, let's change in my settings. Let's go to my promo bar. Let's change the bar at the top of my website to say we know it's free. Network Plus Study Group is right now. Click here to join us. And then we'll make that /live. See how exciting. Save those changes and that will be done. Let's check cameras, shall we? Camera. Program. Hi. Am I centered properly? Close enough. It's really not. It's not centered right at all, is it? It needs to come over the other direction, but that's close enough. Well, that's an awful page. How about this one? That's much better. And let's look at this right here. Very nice. Can I put myself in there? Hi, self. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'll just stay right there and right there and with this. Okay. That's all working. Oh, let's start a recording. Here we go. Recordings are going. I need to see the next slide. There we go. There we are. Graphics here. I think we're just about ready. Streaming appears to be working. One never knows. It is raining. How bad is it raining? I'm glad you asked. How bad is it raining? It is, see, I'll just turn this down, or else it's going to be loud. Well, that's from last night. That's not going to help anybody know about how it is. How is it right now? That's what I want to know. What's going on right this very second in the backyard? That was, oh, I got some overlap there. I need to adjust my things. Oh, see, that's what's raining. See right there. That's what's happening right now. There's rain on the camera. It's coming down. It's awful. Horrible outside. Okay, enough of that guy. Enough of him. Not going to be any birds in the bird feeder right now. Now I got to look at a thing. I have to look at some things on the screen over here before we get started. 4 minutes till this. This is not the show. If you're watching right now and wondering, this is the worst show ever, you'd be right. You'd be absolutely correct. Fortunately, this is not. So you're in better shape. Ba, 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 ba. Da, 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 da. Okay. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. All right. All right, all right. Things are working there. It's hard to sift through all of the things that come into my inbox and know which one of these things is legitimate and which one of these things is not so much. Quite a challenge. All right. Oh, I've logged into Socrative. Socrative is right here. Other people are in Socrative. And had I created a lower third like I was supposed to, you'd know exactly where to go right now. Which is Socrative.com. Room name Professor Messer. Professor Messer. Professor Messer. Oh, I've got to get a new mouse. You know what pains me? It's getting a new mouse. The mouse that I have is no longer used. It's no longer in production. The company that made my current mouse, which is a Funk, F-U-N-C mouse, was acquired. It's too bad. It's this nice wide. It's kind of hard to see. I can't even pull it up because I've got equipment everywhere. It's hard to see, but it's a mouse. It's really got this. It has a thumb, the two fingers, your ring finger, and the pinky all fit on the mouse. It's made for big brain surgeon hands like mine, and I say that facetiously. Big hands, so my fingers never touch anything that's down there. It's fantastic, and of course they got bought, and immediately they got rid of that mouse. Not available. And it has the button that is in the roller in the wheel no longer operates. Well, we can't have that. That won't do. So I'm in the process of looking for another mouse, and it pains me because they make mice for little tiny hands, little baby hands, little rabbit hands are apparently using our computers because that's the only mice I can find. The tiny little baby hands, 6-month-old children are using computers apparently, and that's it. Nobody else is. Why don't they make a mouse for a grown person's hand? I don't get it. That makes no sense to me. Even this one's kind of small. It doesn't make any sense. We've been doing this a while now, haven't we? And I gotta tell you, I don't know why they're not making a mouse. That's enough of that. That's enough of that rant. Let's do a study group. Well, I haven't even got the study group stuff up yet. Where is everything? Is it here? Yes, it is. We're recording. There's the Cylon, so I know we're recording. We're streaming. Streaming is working. Are people here? Are people really here? Let's look. Yes, you folks are here. So I should get things going already. As if I have not already got this thing going. It's top of the hour. Let's do a study group. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2016 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This is the study group that I do once a month where I ask you Network Plus questions, and hopefully you're able to answer these questions. We all do this live. I'm able to ask these questions. You're able to participate online and try to figure out what you think the right answer is, and then we'll look to see how we did at the end of it. This is one where I'm able to step through all of these different questions that come up with Network Plus, because as many of you know, the Network Plus exam has many and varied different exam objectives. We'll talk about the exam objectives in just a bit. I'm able to do this because of your support every month. You end up watching this, as crazy as that sounds, and it just makes me want to do more of them. If you want to follow what we do in the meantime between these study groups, you can always go to professormesser.com/getnetplus to see my offline version of my course. Of course, you can watch every single one of my training videos online for absolutely free. You don't have to buy anything to take the entire course. Every minute of every video is available and online. Of course, you can follow what I'm doing at Twitter, at YouTube. If you go to professormesser.com/Instagram, you'll see the disaster that was the studio this morning that I had to work through. There's a whole story about that. Maybe I'll talk about that in the after show. And don't forget about the discount vouchers. Don't pay full price for your vouchers. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers. If you are watching this on the YouTube side, I do have a live event chat on my website. Make sure you go to the one that says live event chat. That's the one I'm looking at to see what's going on. So that's a good place to go and converse back and forth with me and ask me questions about what you see and what's going on. If you are interested in my offline version of my course, it's something you can purchase. If you want just MP3 files, you can purchase those as well. And of course, if you buy either of those, you get the course notes thrown in for absolutely free. We'll talk more about the course notes in a bit. Now, if you're watching this live, you can participate. You can answer the questions in real time. If you're not watching this live, none of this applies to you. So I'll get a few emails every month saying, I can't do this. Well, it's because you have to be here live. It's one of the benefits of tuning in live. And you can always go to the calendar on the Professor Messer website to do this live at professormesser.com/calendar. One place to go to answer these questions is an online service called Socrative. You can either install an app on your mobile device with the Socrative Student app, or you can go to the online, pop open a new window, go to Socrative.com, click on the student login, and type in the term, the word, the room name, Professor Messer, all one word. So you have to spell it right, PROFESSORMESSER. And if you spell it right, you'll be in there. You'll be able to see exactly what I see on my screen, which is this question: how long you've been studying for your Network Plus certification? And so far, 50, I can see folks are logging in now. 45 of you have already answered. 36% said less than 3 months. We've got 24% that said 3 to 6 months. 6 to 9 months has been 17% of you. Then it drops off, although you 4% over a year. Those are my people right there. That's how long it takes me to do a certification course. And I already have my Network Plus certification. Maybe you're watching this for continuing education unit credits. And if you are, 16% of you can get those just by hanging out and answering questions with me for an hour. And sometime in this hour, I will give you a special code word and give you the instructions on how you can obtain that continuing education unit credit. That's one of the things that we like to do here. And so you can see as people are answering, we can dynamically watch the screen change as people are answering different things. So I will show this question to you. This is a good place to try to get your Socrative up and running. If there's any questions or problems, you may want to throw it out to the chat room. They can always help people through some of the problems that they might be having. So someone was asking me this past week, hey, is Network Plus going away? Well, it really kind of just got here in the big scheme of things. These exams, when they're released, tend to last 3 years. So this version of the Network Plus exam is called the N10006. So everything that you use to study for this exam should have N10-006 on it somewhere. If it has any other number, if it has the 005 or the 004 or anything else, it's not current with the latest Network Plus exam objectives. These objectives were released on February the 28th of 2015. So now we're just over a year into this. We expect this exam to be updated somewhere around February of 2018. So you should be able to spend plenty of time studying. Even you folks that go over a year with your studies can still make it to the 2018 date of the N10006. Just make sure all of the materials that you're using say N10006 on them, and you're going to be just fine. Although there's not enormous changes between the exam versions, there's just enough to now put you at a disadvantage if you were to walk into the exam and never touch any N10006 types of topics. So it's important that you do that. And by the way, you'll see a picture here of the Network Plus exam objectives. There it is. Make sure you download these objectives. Make sure you go to Type in professormesser.com/objectives, go to the Google machine and type in CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure that you download these objectives. It's incredibly important that you have all of the latest objectives for this exam. So make sure you work on those as well. Let's do some questions, shall we? That's why we're here. For folks in the chat room asking, is there anything we can do with these CEUs before you're certified? There's not. So if you're someone who is certified, you can gather continuing education units. CompTIA will not accept any continuing education units that you earned prior to passing your exam. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's do a question. Are we ready? I think I'm ready. Here's the first question. Which of the following would commonly be part of a SIEM? That's how you pronounce that weird word, SIEM. A SIEM. Which of the following would commonly be part of a SIEM? Fortunately, I've given you some multiple choice questions. So as we go through these questions, don't answer in the chat room. Don't Google them. You should take a stab at this as if you're sitting in front of the exam and going to be answering these questions. Here's some possible answers for you. Which of the following would commonly be part of a SIEM? Would it be router and switch configuration backups? Might it be long-term storage of packet captures? It could be real-time intrusion detection. It might be security alerts, or it might be centralized software distribution. So there's quite a bit of technology thrown in there that you're going to need to know about. So understanding a SIEM is going to be a very important part of that. So I would highly recommend that you go to the exam, to the Socrative.com, go to the student login, go to room, Professor Messer, maybe you'll get this one. Which would commonly be part of a SIEM? This is one of the things they do on the exam, by the way, is they ask you questions about what is the best answer or what is the most common answer, because there could be multiple answers in here that could possibly be part of a SIEM. In fact, I could think of one or two or even three on here that I have seen in a SIEM, whatever that SIEM is. And only one of these, though, is really the most common one that you would find as part of a SIEM. So you should give that a shot, see if you understand what those things are as well. So let's try this. Let's see if working through these pieces. Let's see how we did with this one. We've got a few people. 63 of you have answered so far. The rest of you are Googling it, which I told you not to do, but that's okay. Well, we're kind of torn as to the answers on this one. Kind of a tie for first. We'll say that most of us got it right, because it's a tie for first, and there's 64% of you that think you know what it is. 33% of you said real-time intrusion detection. 30% of you said security alerts, and then you have just above 10%, maybe even a tie for second, a three-way tie for second, with router and switch configuration backups, long-term storage of packet captures, and centralized software distribution. So what is this weird SIEM that we're talking about? A SIEM stands for the Security Information and Event Management. It's a very common term that you will run into when you're working with network infrastructure equipment, and almost always with security type equipment. As you can imagine, there are a lot of logs that are in all of these devices. There are logs in your routers. There's logs in your switches. There are logs, a lot of logs in your firewalls. Your firewalls are just a log generation machine. That's all those firewalls tend to be, because they are logging everything that's going through that firewall. If you've ever wondered, when you're at school, you're at work, you're on somebody else's network, and you're typing something in and it goes to a site, you're wondering, I wonder if that was saved anywhere. Yes, it was. It always is. And mostly done by the firewall, but it can be done other places. And of course, there are logs in your servers. There are logs in your power systems. There's logs in your air conditioning ventilation systems. There are logs everywhere. Well, wouldn't it be great, instead of logging into all of these different devices and going through all of the logs manually, what if there was a way to consolidate everything back to a central point? And that's what a security information and event management device is designed to do. And security, being that first word, tends to make everybody think it's just a security device, but it really isn't. It's a device that can really take logs from any other type of device. Primarily done for security, so security alerts is a very common thing. There'll be a dashboard on the SIEM. It's receiving messages from different firewalls and switches and routers, and when it identifies something that is is not normal, it'll pop up a message on the screen that says, I just parsed through these terabytes of logs and I found this particular problem that you need to be aware of. This will aggregate all of these logs from different locations, from these different devices, bring it all back to a central database, and be able to store them over a long period of time. These switches and these routers and these firewalls only have so much storage. It's very small, relatively speaking, on these devices. So it's nice to have these multi-terabyte storage arrays that you could bring all the logs back to. The value of that, of course, is now that you have everything in one place, you could start looking through the data. And looking through it manually, certainly, but the SIEM has technology built into it that knows what it's looking for. It has intelligence built into it so that it can go programmatically through those logs and try to find things that you should be aware of. And especially if you're trying to compare logs from a router, logs from a switch, logs from a firewall, it will put them all together and tell you, here's a problem that went across all three of these devices all at the same time, just so you can be aware of those. And of course, if you ever want to go back and see what was that person doing at any particular time, or what was this particular flow through our network, what information was requested, what information was sent, this is a great place to go because it's all logged. Everything is in the log. Everything. As someone who has spent a part of their career installing these enterprise firewalls and these logging systems and being able to look through the data, everything is in there. You need a unicorn break afterwards with rainbows, just so you can get out of what you saw in some of these logs, because everything's there. But what a great place to go to really see how the network traffic is performing, the type of communication going in and out of your network. Is this communication appropriate or not appropriate? Should I set filters? Should I set quality of service settings? Should I change the bandwidth that we happen to be using? This SIEM can tell you all of that. It's an amazing technology. So you may want to try it on your equipment. If you have equipment at work that is producing logs, try one of these SIEMs. All you type in SIEM, and Google will tell you everything you need to know about the different SIEMs. Really amazing technology. So if you answered this question, which of the following would commonly be part of a SIEM? If you answered D, security alerts, which interestingly is now taking the lead, you got that particular question absolutely right. Router and switch configuration backups are not always part of a SIEM, but I have seen SIEMs that can grab backup files and store them in the SIEM as well. That becomes more of a device management function, but there are some SIEMs that do this. Long-term storage of packet captures. You're not generally capturing packets and storing them for long periods of time, but there are some firewalls that are next-generation firewalls. They have intrusion prevention capabilities inside of them, and they will not only identify problems or attacks coming into the network, they'll capture a few packets along with it and include that in the log. And of course, that goes into your SIEM. So that's not the primary function of a SIEM, and that's one of those that I mentioned. The question's asking you for the most common use of a SIEM. That is not the most common use when you compare the other options available. Real-time intrusion detection is almost never done in a SIEM. It might be able to give you after the fact intrusion detection as it sifts through all of these logs and brings them together, but it's nothing that's going to be in real time. We're talking about terabytes and terabytes of logs. If you just wanted to do a report for a single day, it might take 10 or 15 or 30 minutes just to create a single report. There's no way to do real-time analysis of anything on a SIEM. And the centralized software distribution is almost never part of a SIEM. Software distribution is a science unto itself. It's not something that you would ever have in your centralized logging system. So if you answered D, security alerts, 34% of you got that one absolutely right. So that was a good way to start off our Network Plus study group. Let's do another one. Let's shift gears a bit and go into more of an encryption type of question, since a lot of you send me these notes and you say, I want to do more encryption. So here we go. Which of the following would not be a characteristic of a digital signature? So now we really have to know what digital signatures are, because I'm going to give you 5 different things, and I want you to tell me which of those would not be a characteristic of a digital signature. Now, the different options you have are represents data as a short string of text, transfers data using strong encryption, provides authentication, non-repudiation, and integrity. Different messages have different hashes, and it's commonly used to store passwords. These are mostly all absolutely correct, but the question I'm asking is which of the following would not be a characteristic of a digital signature. This is another one you have to watch out for, by the way, on the exam. And I've done this way too many times when a question has asked me something, but the word not was in there, and I've just streamed through it, and I have not seen the word not, and just answered the question and kept going. And only afterwards, after reading it through, did I happen to notice that they were looking for the opposite of what they were asking for. And you have to go through and change all of those things. So make sure you watch and read very carefully on the exams. One of my big tips is always, always, always read those questions all the way through. Don't assume anything on the exam. So if you happen to know the answer to this one, on which of these would not be the characteristic of a digital signature, you can absolutely go through and answer some of these. Now, this is interesting that digital signatures are used in so many different ways. And this is where I think on this particular question, you have to really examine the best answer based on any of these things, because digital signatures are used for so many different things. And I think there might be, you could argue two answers with this one. I might want to give you a little bit of extra on this one, but we're going to go through the details of digital signatures and break that all the way out. See, in the chat room, I know, I read the questions, there's a word not in there, and I just miss it completely. It's so easy to do. You don't want to be that person who's working through those pieces, and then it was an easy question and you just read it wrong. You knew the content and you just missed the way it was presented to you. You don't want to have that happen to you. On the question, on a number of these exams, they actually capitalize the NOT, all capital letters, to have them show a little bit better on the exam. I've seen some exams do that, but I don't guarantee that that's going to happen with your exam, so I don't do it on mine. I want you to read the questions and being able to work through them. So let's see how we did on this one. We actually have two answers on this one that could be correct. So somebody brought this up to me as I was going through this list prior to the study group and said, well, we could go either way on this. And in a way, yes, it's true, we could. But I'm going to give you the one that I think really is the one that is not the best characteristic of a digital signature. And then I'm going to be able to break this down and tell you what I think it is. So obviously, 59% of you said commonly used to store passwords. And I don't think you're right. I don't think that's actually the right answer. The right answer, I think, is the second one, which is transfers data using strong encryption. A digital signature doesn't transfer any data, and it certainly doesn't do any encryption in the traditional way, because you can't. Transferring of data means you're sending data to one side and somebody's going to view it on the other side, and a digital signature doesn't have data in it. It's merely a hash of data, and it can only be a hash of data. So let's step through these. I'll talk about why I think the correct answer would be transfers data using strong encryption, why that is not a characteristic of a digital signature. And this kind of goes back to what hashes are in general, because a digital signature is effectively a hash. That's really what it is. It's taking a bit of plain text or a bit of information, it could be a file, and it's looking through the file and it's creating a very unique bit of information at the end. And so whenever you look at these digital signatures or these hashes, the hash is always going to be something different if the text you were signing is different. That's because it really is checking and making sure that nobody's able to change any of that information. But it's also a one-way trip. I mentioned it's not going to be transferring data, because when you hash something, we're creating this one-way communication, this one-way representation or fingerprint, if you will, of what that particular information was to begin with. You can't take the digital signature and undo it to create the original text. It's not an encrypted version of the text. You can't do that. This is one where we're creating this what we call a message digest. That's what a hash is. It takes the message and it gives you this Reader's Digest version of what that message is, and it's usually a certain number of certain size. I'll show you. I think I have some examples of these. I might not in here, but I do in my hashing video. I described this to you. Hashes are obviously used to store passwords, because you can store a password as a hash, and you can't undo the hash in any way to get the password back. So it's a great way to store something securely. You would have to type in the password, perform the same function you used to hash it in the first place, and see if the hash is matched. That's really what most places said. or most people will do with storing their passwords. Hashes can be digital signatures, which is really the question we were talking about here. And with a digital signature, we're able to authenticate that it came from a certain person. We're able to ensure that that really did come from that person, did not come from someone else. And we are also sure that the information that was hashed has not been changed somewhere between the first place and the second place. So that's where the integrity comes in. This is one where hopefully the hash that you're using will not have collisions either. In the world of cryptography, a collision is where you might have one document and you create a hash, and you have a completely different document and somehow the hashes turn out to be identical. That's very bad. You don't want that. And most of the hashes that we use today do not have collisions in that way, because that would be very easy for somebody to fake that a document came from you because the hash is identical to something that's legitimate. And obviously don't want that to happen. And so whenever we talk about hashing, we're talking about performing digital signatures or simply creating a message digest based on an original piece of information. It could be a file, it could be some text, it could be an email. In fact, whenever I send you my continuing education unit certificate, I just send it in an email. And I tell you, this certifies that you indeed watched this hour of the study group, and then I digitally sign it. And people will say, what is that attachment, that ASCII file that's just some weird text that you stuck on the end of my email? That's my digital signature. I hashed the information that I put there, and then I stuck it to the email. That way, if somebody changed it from 1 hour to 10 hours, you would find that the digital signature would no longer properly authenticate the email, would not say that that email was the original because you changed it. One of the beauties of digital signatures and how we use hashing today. So although I kind of can go with you that we don't commonly use hashes to store digital signatures, it is something we do with digital signatures. We don't commonly use digital signatures to store the hash, to store the password, but it can be done. The thing that would not be a characteristic of a digital signature, absolutely would not be a characteristic of a digital signature in any way, shape, or form, is the answer B, transfers data using strong encryption. There's no data transfer here. We're not doing strong encryption. Digital signatures have nothing to do with either of those things. Instead, those 16% of you that answered B, transfers data using strong encryption, got that one right. Got that one absolutely correct. A hash, a digital signature, does indeed represent data as a short stream of text. It does provide authentication, non-repudiation, and integrity. Different messages absolutely have different hashes, and we do use digital signatures, or at least the hashing function associated with those, to store passwords. So hopefully that's given you some concepts and ideas around digital signatures and how to use them and how people are taking advantage of them and being able to use them to store information, including passwords. It's just another way that we have this encryption and capabilities based on public and private key infrastructure available. Now, make sure you go to the CompTIA exam objectives. One of the last sections of the Network Plus is all about encryption, and the digital signature piece of that is inside of that last section. Let's now shift gears away from the cryptography world a bit, and let's talk more about how things work in networking, shall we? This is one that we have available. Which of the following is a common connection between a CSU, DSU, and a router? Which one of these is a common connection between a CSU, DSU, and a router? Now, if you're working with networking, you're absolutely going to get into routers, CSU, DSUs, and connections. So you absolutely need to know what those things do, how they connect, what they are. This is something that came to me based on an email I got this week. We'll talk about that in a moment. So some possible answers for you are common connection between a CSU, DSU, and a router, V35, gigabit Ethernet, 802.1q trunk, a lag, or multi-mode fiber. Which of these would be the most common connection between a CSU, DSU, and a router? It's got to be one of these, right? Some of you, I think, have probably worked with these. Now, in this case, I'm really referring to a CSU, DSU that is separate from the router. There are a number of routers and other WAN-connected devices out there that simply plug into the WAN connection, and the CSU, DSU part is integrated into the router. Well, we're not talking about an integrated system here. We're really talking about an external CSU, DSU and a external router. They're separate devices, and we got to connect them somehow. Which is the most common way to connect these devices together? How does that happen? What's going on there, and how does that work? We need to know. If you think you know, go to Socrative.com, go to the room name Professor Messer, make sure you type that in properly, and you can answer this one as well. I'm going to take a peek. In fact, it's one of the benefits I have of kind of looking through here. We have no idea what this answer is. We're all trying to figure out what in the world are you talking about? CSU, DSU, router. And this is one of those things that if you've never connected a WAN circuit before, there's no way you're going to know this. And yet, that's an important thing to know for the exam. So it would be useful to go through, again, CSU, DSUs, which are certainly part of the Network Plus exam objectives, so you can learn more about how a CSU technology works and being able to work through all of the different nuances of that technology. It's a good one to know. Let's see how we did. And you can see here we are all over the place. Gigabit Ethernet, number one with 33%. Multi-mode fiber, 27%. Kind of a tie for third between V35 and a .1Q trunk. And then you've got lag, link aggregation, is a tiny little 6%. Now, that seems sad, doesn't it? I would think link aggregation would be the first one I would kind of think in my mind when I'm connecting different devices together. Maybe not, though. Maybe that's not what we would do with that link aggregation. Well, let's talk about a CSU DSU and what this thing is. The channel service unit, data service unit. It is generally a combined device. Some people said this is a modem. It's not really a modem. Modem modulator, demodulator, we generally think of as a device that's taking a digital signal and changing it into something that is an analog signal. Commonly use those to connect to common phone lines and be able to send information from one site to the other. The challenge, though, with a CSU DSU is there's no analog here. Generally, a CSU DSU is taking something coming from a WAN provider, which is a digital signal, and turning it into a serial signal on our side that is also digital that's going into our router. So it's really a universal translator is probably a better example of what this would be. It's translating the wide area network language into something your router can understand. Routers really know serial connections. They understand serial connectivity extremely well, especially on wide area network links. And that's really what's happening. This picture even shows, you can see network and data port 1. This CSU DSU has these weird connectors on it. It's really taking this network connection, which is probably coming from your wide area network provider as an RJ48C connection, which visually looks just like an RJ45. And it usually has an RJ45 going into the CSU DSU, or in this particular case has this weird multi-pin connector, and usually have a cable that takes the RJ45 and puts it into that weird multi-pin connector with that D style, or really that's a DB or DD, a DA, one of those types of sizes of the D subminiature connector. The connection that goes to your router is this weird looking blocky data port 1 connection. Isn't that weird? It goes back. It's a V35 connection. That's commonly a V35 block that you will run into. The V35 that's there is one that usually goes from that big blocky thing that allows you to screw in and get a really tight connection. And usually when you're plugging into a router, it's usually these DB15 or DB25 type connectors that allow you to then plug into the router and being able to do that. It's really a remarkable set of weird connectors that you've never plugged in ever before or will plug in anything else. It's really something that's exclusive to the wide area network. These serial connections are generally going to be to the router, this V35 and RS-232, especially with WAN connections that are these slower T1, T3 type connections. It's almost always a serial connection into your router. These days, you have these situations where you are working with a provider that is simply giving you an Ethernet connection. Well, in that case, you don't have a CSU DSU. They're really just providing you straight Ethernet, and you plug your Ethernet into your router or your firewall. Sometimes, and this particular picture doesn't show one, but sometimes the CSU DSU will have monitor jacks on them that looked like the old style jacks that an operator would use to connect your call. The big wall of wires, and they'd move the jacks around to connect those. We still use those with wide area networks. They're often jacks. They're right on the side. You can plug into the monitor jacks, and if you have monitoring equipment or testing equipment, you can listen in to the conversation that's going on. You're obviously not listening. It's a digital signal, but it's actually looking and seeing what that is. So you can really understand and gather information about how healthy the wide area network connection is performing. So that's one where when you start working through the details, that's a good one to really start to understand and know exactly what you would work through with these particular questions. So how do we do with this one? CSU, DSU connectivity. Well, it's not gigabit Ethernet. Sorry, that's not correct. It's not multi-mode fiber. We never, rarely, if ever, see fiber. I don't think I've ever seen an instance of needing fiber between a CSU, DSU, and a router. There must be one out there somewhere. Never seen it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it's certainly not common. 802.1q trunk. This is not a trunk connection. It's not a connection that you're tagging Ethernet frames on. So that's not the appropriate question. And it's not link aggregation. You generally don't have a lot of very high bandwidths going between a CSU, DSU, and a router. It's almost very commonly a V35 or an RS-232 type connection between a CSU, DSU, and a router. In the chat room, the question is, how common are CSU, DSUs in a typical institution? Well, if you're connecting to a T1, T3, or traditional wide area network connection, you have a CSU, DSU in your environment. That is exactly what you will have. Ethernet connections are not the norm now. They are if you're connecting to an Ethernet provider, certainly. But if we're talking about a CSU, DSU, then we're really talking about a serial connection. If somebody's providing you, if the wide area network provider is providing you the Ethernet connection, well, that's obviously not even going to use a CSU, DSU, so this particular question would not apply. And it's very common to see those if you have any type of those traditional wide area network connections coming into your network. Certainly something to keep in mind if you're working through those. So there is, as you can tell, we've only gone through 3 questions so far. So much content on the exam. Huge amounts of content. And if you've gone through my videos, you've got hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of videos to go through. And I certainly recommend, as you're going through those videos, that you go through the questions and all of the content and write down your own notes as you're going through the videos. But sometimes we don't have time to write our own notes, or maybe we'd like to have a copy of my notes. I've done exactly that. I've gone through all of my videos. I've taken all of the graphics. I've taken all of the text. I've grabbed all of the images. I've taken everything that's important from my videos, and I've created a series of notes. So these notes have on them everything from subnetting to protocols to encryption to CSU, DSUs to proxies to all the topologies. All the things we were talking about in the exam objectives are in these course notes. So this is a great thing to use to give you a nice summary of what's on the exam. So here's a copy of the course notes. They're provided in PDF format, so you can put them on all of your mobile devices. You can put them on your desktop system. You can print them out if you'd like to. Certainly able to do all of those pieces as well. And as you can see, they just go on and on. These are 15 pages of notes that I have in these course notes, and maybe it's something that you can find valuable as well. This is something that also goes back to help support keeping the site going. I make all of my videos available for free, and a lot of people say, I'd like to help support what you're doing, and this is a great way to do it. Every single dollar of this goes back to keeping the website running. So if you want to know more about that, you can find out more at professormesser.com/NPCN, the Network Plus course notes, and be able to use those as well. It's something that might even save you a little bit of time. Somebody bought my course notes recently and said, hey, these are just seem to be notes from your course. Yes, that's what they are. They are notes from my course. They are 15 pages of notes from my course, thus the name Course Notes. So don't try to think that you're getting something that's not course notes. They really are course notes, and I call them course notes because they are notes from my course. Maybe you'll like them as well. You can absolutely go through and find out more at professormesser.com/NPCN, where I tell you all of this, and you can learn more about the course notes as well. And thanks for everybody who's purchased them already. Thank you so much for your support. It goes a long way to keeping these live events and all the videos coming. So thanks again. Let's do another question. I've got one now. I know, why would they be different than course notes if they say that they are course notes? But there you go. Here is one that's a fill in the blank. Now, as you probably are aware, on the CompTIA exam, you may be asked questions and you may not get a multiple choice answer. They call these performance-based questions. These performance-based questions they might be fill in the blank, they might be matching, they might pop you into a command line. You have to perform a function. There's so many different things you have to be able to do. So think of this as your first performance-based question of the day. So you're going to need a pencil and paper probably. Some of you can do this in your head. I'm not good at doing math in my head. I like to write it out and make sure that what I'm thinking in my head matches what's on the screen. So you go here and try to type in the answer to this. What is the decimal equivalent, or what is the binary equivalent of decimal 154? So take what is decimal 154 in a binary form. Why don't I just say the question? I don't know. I'm not doing that. I'm making it more difficult for myself. Yes, a binary conversion. Now, on your Network Plus exam, you'll not only be asked to do binary conversions, but the exam, for some reason, it doesn't really tell you the extent of this, but it does say you need to know about octal. You need to know about hexadecimal. So in my videos, I step you through and show you all of those different ways to convert between decimal and octal. Decimal, hexadecimal, decimal, and binary. Don't use a calculator. You will not have a calculator on the exam. So don't use a calculator to do this. That defeats. In fact, if you do this, you will be glad you did it by hand for the next question I have to ask you. So we're going to build on this. So the decimal 154 and binary, some of you are sending this in. You guys are really good at your decimal to binary conversions, by the way. You guys are really good at it. You're spot on. Well done. I've got a number of answers coming in. You guys are really good at this. I'm getting hardly anybody who's missed a bit somewhere. Wow, some of you are really typing in a lot of ones and zeros. We're looking for 8 digits to represent the decimal 154 in binary. Maybe you can do that. Yeah, I try to do it in my head. I try to calculate and send it through. A lot of you are doing really well with this one. Nice. Some of you have been putting the 0xb at the beginning. Don't think if that's really necessary. This is something you do need to know for the exam. So, in fact, this is one where it really comes in handy almost everywhere. Certainly comes in handy for subnetting, and it's going to come in handy for what the next question is. I keep saying this. So make sure you go through this process. Or if you aren't sure how to do this, let's do it. Let's step through how you would convert from a decimal 154 and get a binary out of this. Now, the easiest way is to, on a piece of paper, create a conversion chart. So we're going to put 8 different blanks on the screen. These 8 blanks are going to be the ones and zeros that ultimately turn into the 154 in a binary form. And above those, we're going to start kind of on the right side, put a number 1, and then double that and put it 1 over to the left. So put a number 2. Double that, make a number 4. Double that, make a number 8. Double that, make a number 16, 32, 64, 128. So you can easily start at one end and just calculate through to create this conversion chart. These numbers will be very important for us in just a moment. So here, now we can start performing the actual conversion. And fortunately, the conversion is really just addition and subtraction. There's no advanced math. There's no algebra involved. Of course, there's no algebra involved. There's no algebra involved anywhere. So there's no higher math. There's no multiplication. There's no division. Something very simple. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to come out with a 154 on the end. And the way you do this is you start on the far left and we see the number 128 is there. And we ask, is the number 128 less than or equal to 154? Well, yeah, it absolutely is. So whenever we say yes to that particular question, we put a 1 down where that happens to be, and we bring down the number that happens to be above. So we have 128. Now what we want to do is we want to subtract that 128 from the 154 because we've just used it. So let's do the next one down as a 64. So 64 is 128 plus 64, or 192, less than or equal to 154 because we're adding up. We already got 128 here. Is 128 plus 64? No, that's not. That's not less than or equal to 154. So because we said no, a 0 goes in place. Next one over is 32. So how about 128 plus 32? That happens to equal 160. Is that less than or equal to 154? No, it's 160. So that's a no. We can put a 0 in that place. Next one is 128 plus 28 plus 16 is 144. Is that less than or equal? Yes, it is. So there's a 1 that goes in that place. We'll bring down the 16. So now we're up to 144, and we just keep going down the line. 144 plus 8 is 152. It's definitely less than equal to 154. Now 152 plus 4, nope, that doesn't work. So we keep calculating it out until we finally reach the end of what this happens to be. So this is one where we look at the number, we just take all the ones and zeros and put them all together. So 154 in binary is 1001, 1010. That is exactly the answer that we were looking for. So a lot of you sent in, I'm not going to show all of the different answers that you sent in, but almost everybody sent in 1001, 1010, which matches exactly the conversion that we were looking for this particular question. Well done with that. In fact, very few of you even diverted from that particular answer. Well done. About 87 of you answered, 88 of you answered. So well done with that. It's such an easy form. So once you do about 3 or 4 of these, it now becomes almost automatic to do the conversions. It's also easy to do the reverse of this, because all you have to do, if you don't know what the decimal is, you write your conversion chart, you put a bunch of ones and zeros in, they give you the binary, put the binary in that they gave you, and then just perform the calculation. Bring down the number that's at the top, 128 plus 16 plus 8 plus 2, and it equals 154. It's so easy to reverse a binary to decimal and being able to work through those. So if you answered 1001, 1010, got it absolutely right. Now, keep that pen and paper out, because now I have another question for you regarding aggregated routes. So I'm going to give you a route. What's this going to look like? I'm going to bring it up on my screen so I can see what it looks like. I'm going to give you a set of, let me go back one. I want you to create an aggregated route for me. And this is another one that is a multiple choice question. So this is one you're really going to have to think about how this is going to work. I've done a lot of the work already for you, though. And this is the list of routes that I want to aggregate. Give me what an aggregated route for this would be. Now, one of the challenges here is that there's more math involved. We have to do more addition and more subtraction to be able to make this work. But we need to go through these set of routes and be able to make them work. I created these routes brand new just for the study group. Somebody in the chat room was asking earlier, where do you get these questions from? I write them. I write every single question I ever give. Every single question you ever see from me, an A+ question, a Network Plus question, a Security Plus question was originally written. I don't get these questions from anywhere. It's the best way to do it, really. So now we need to aggregate these. How do we do this? How does this work? Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm getting her frowny faces. And this one's going to take some time, though, to figure out, because there's something we have to do with this one to really figure out what it's going to be. But it's really only one calculation. We think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 routes here that I put, 7 routes in this list, 6 routes. And you think, well, there are the 6 different calculations I have to do. There's not. Fortunately, there's one calculation you have to do to be able to do this. How do you speed up the live feed? Well, you get a time machine and you step into it and you jump ahead to get the answer. Let's go through. Some of you are sending in some questions. Well, some of you getting it, I think, right. Some of you spot on. Some of you maybe not. Let's see how we do. I'm going to take you through route aggregation. Let's step through how I would answer this. Now, because normally what they give you in a question like this is they just give you the IP addresses, these subnets. They just say, here's a bunch of subnets, create a route aggregation. I kind of did the next step for you, because the next step is writing out all of these binary representation. So you have to write out which each one of these subnets happens to be in binary. This is the best and easiest way to do the route aggregation because you can visually see exactly where the line is that you're about to draw. So this is what you will run into with route aggregation. Sometimes they call it prefix aggregation, route summarization, super netting is another term for it. It's a way to take, instead of putting 6 routes into your router like we have in ours, what if we could just put 1 route, which summarizes things so nicely. It speeds up the route lookups. And if you have a lot of different routes in your router, this can be a significant improvement over these things. There's less memory that's going to be used because you're not storing a lot of different routes in your router. There's fewer routing advertisements because you've taken 6 routes that would normally be in an advertisement and you shrunk it down to 1, a difference of 6 to 1. That's a pretty good number. And it needs to be done with a routing protocol that can support the CIDR block notation, or if you're doing static routing, obviously, is one that would work that way as well. So how would this work? So we've got that list of IP addresses that I put up for you. Did I put up the right ones there? I think I did. So what we're trying to do is look at the IP addresses and figure out where do they start deviating from each other. So we're really looking for the bits that match across all of the different IP addresses. And you can see I drew a line on mine, this line that goes 2 bits into the 3rd octet. You can see that every single one of these routes is identical until we get to that line. And right after that line, you can see they begin to deviate just a little bit. So there's some similarities between all of these routes that go all the way up to that line. So what we want to do to be able to calculate this is we want to, put it up on the screen here, take everything before the line and leave it. All the green will leave exactly the way it is. Everything that's after the line, we're going to make zeros because we're going to create effectively a summarization of everything that's going to be down that line. So if I create zeros, I then only have to do one single calculation to be able to summarize everything. We know that we're going to mask all the way up to that 2nd bit of the 3rd octet. So I know I've got 8, 16, 17, 18 bits that I'm going to have as part of the subnet. So that's where the /18 is coming from. And then the rest of the numbers, I'm just getting directly from the calculations that I'm performing. So we didn't touch the 1st octet, it stays 10. We didn't touch the 2nd octet, it stays a 1. We did change the 3rd octet, and since we changed everything to zeros, now we can perform that binary conversion just like we did with the last question. The only thing that is a 1 is right here in the 2nd bit in, which means it's a 64. That's almost a very quick addition. There's no addition or subtraction at all, is there? We just bring down the 64 and we're done. And then, of course, all zeros in the last octet because we changed them all to 0 to do the route summarization. That's a 0. So our final answer in this route summarization, and some of you, hardly anybody got this one right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you out of the 28 that were daring enough to send me a route summarization got this one absolutely correct. So maybe our binary and route summarization we need to work on for our Network Plus exam. This is a new topic on the N10006 that was not in the N10005 or the N10004. I don't know that they're going to be going into this level of detail on the exam because they don't put that into the exam objectives. But I thought showing you the process of route summarization certainly helps you understand taking these 6 addresses that we used to have, and we effectively turn those all into one address so that we can use that more efficiently on our network. Yeah, I'm getting people giving me the thumbs down for such hard questions and being able to work through those. But you might get that on there. You have to have the mask in there for it to be correct. Yes, you have to have that /18. It's all part of the summarization. The actual answer, 10.1.64.0/18, is the full and complete answer for that route summarization. There's so much to know on the exam, tons of content to go through, so many different topics that you might want to go through. And sometimes finding just a lab that can step you through these can be challenging because obviously with Network Plus, there's routers, there's switches, There's operating system commands. There's so many different things we have to know. But fortunately, my friends at GTS Learning have created these live labs that I'm logged into right now that can take you through all of these different topics for the Intent 006. There's ARP and ICMP, email client, network, virtual machines, VPN servers. There's a part 1 and 2 for that. Network vulnerabilities, network address translation, IPsec. I'm just flipping through and skipping through because there's so many of them that are in here. IPv6 addressing and routing, backup and restore, log management. There's one about a SIEM you might want to look at. TCP/IP utilities, SNMP, security policies, cryptography, home groups. Finally got to the end. So let's do home groups. I'm going to click this last one. What it does is it brings up on the screen all these virtual machines that are on the left side. In fact, one of it's a domain controller is already booting up, and then I can power on. There's a Windows 8 machine. Here's another Windows 8 machine, a Windows 7 machine. There's so many machines because it's in this lab. They've created this lab already for us with these 5 machines. Imagine putting all of this together in one room and trying to make it all work just to do this single lab and needing all the Windows operating systems and configuring them properly, when all you really want to do is learn how domains and work groups and home groups all work together, because that is a part of the Network Plus exam. And it's going to boot these. These are real virtual machines. So these are not emulations. They're not static screens that are expecting you to click on a certain place. And I say that because the actual CompTIA exam is not a full virtual machine. It's really just giving you a single set of screenshots and having you step through a number of different pieces. But here, you've got a full VM. You can go through and you don't even have to follow the labs if you don't want to. You can log into one of these devices. Here I am logging into that domain controller, and you could do anything you want to the domain controller. You could delete everything on the server if you wanted to, and then all you have to do is log out, reset it, and log back in, and everything will be exactly the way it was. So you can't break anything on these. And because it's using this HTML5, I don't have to load any software on my computer to do this. I have a full Windows machine available. I can step through all of the menus and perform all the normal functions that I would do. And look how fast that is when I'm using it, because it's just screenshots. So useful to have this. These are the GTS Learning live practice labs. You can find out all about these at professormesser.com/netlabs. Make sure you follow that link, because there's a discount built into the link that you don't get if you go to the GTS Learning website. You get those all at GTS Learning by going to professormesser.com/netlabs. Make sure you follow that link, or you won't be able to get that discount. Really some nice capabilities there. They also have a book that's included with this. So the Network Plus book that I use to create all the videos comes with the practice labs. You can buy the book separately if you want from that link as well. They have practice questions, 200 practice questions that are included with the book that come with the Net Labs. Very useful to have that there. So you might want to go through and learn more about the labs yourself. Has some of the things that are there. I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning for also supporting the live stream. Wouldn't be able to do this without them. Wouldn't be able to create my videos without them, because I use their videos to be able to create all of my Network Plus videos. In fact, what they've done is they've taken my videos and they've created a QR code they've stuck into their book. So it's a chicken and egg problem. I used their book to create the videos, and they went back into their book and stuck QR codes. So if you read through a chapter, you can then take a snapshot with your phone that takes you right to the video, and it plays the video of what you were just reading, which I think is kind of cool. I've never seen another book do that, and I think it's kind of neat that the folks at GTS Learning have come up with that nice idea to be able to make that happen. Let's do another question, shall we? We can fit another one in here. I've got one that you're going to have to know this by sight. And the question is, what kind of cable is this? No answering in the chat room. Some of you might know, I know what that is. Don't answer. You want to instead go to Socrative.com to the room named Professor Messer. This is a fill in the blank. I am not giving you any hints on this one. You should know what this cable is right off the bat, and be very specific with what type of cable this is. I'm going to give you a very specific answer with those to be able to work through them. What kind of cable is this? Let me give you a better view of it. Here we go. So there is, can't even see, I see better view. It's got my big head in the way. That's not really a better view. As far as views go, that's a lesser view. Here's a better view. There, my head's out of the way. This is one where you really should know what this cable is. Spot on. What I normally will do when I look at these is really look at the pinouts. And you should be able to know based on these pinouts what this particular cable is. And some of you know pretty well. Now I'm going to throw this out because some of you are giving me an answer, but what kind of this cable is it? It's not exactly, nobody's really giving me the very most specific answer yet. They're giving me a good answer, and I'll take their answer. The answer you're giving me is good, and it's acceptable, and I'll give you a green check mark on that one. But I'm wondering if someone will give me the other answer. In fact, what I should do is pop up on my screen. Since I'm trying to delineate these things in everybody's head, I want to be able to explain what I mean by all of these. So I'm going to find it on my screen. Most of you know this. Well done with these. Some of you have gotten this wrong. So happy you got it wrong because I want to make a note. I'm not going to tell anybody who you were and what you said, but some of you did get it wrong. It's a little nit that I'm going to pick between all of these different things that you will find. So let me show you what we have here. What we have here is an Ethernet crossover cable. That's what this is. This Ethernet crossover cable is more specifically a 1000 base T crossover cable. And the reason that it is a gigabit crossover cable is because it's using all 4 pairs. You can see that all 8 of these wires are crossing over. We don't have any of these wires that are going from one side to the other straight through. So that is what you would absolutely see as a gigabit crossover cable. In fact, this is the only kind of crossover cable you should be using on your network. Some of you said, oh, it's a TIA, EIA TIA 568A to 568B crossover cable. There's no such thing as in 568A to 568B crossover cable. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. And let me show you why. It sort of exists. It kind of exists, but it really doesn't. This is why. This is what we used to use as a crossover cable for 10 megabit and 100 megabit Ethernet. And what we did is generally pins 4, 5, 7, and 8 would just pass straight through. And if you look at a 568A wiring and a 568B wiring, and you put them on both ends of a cable, it ends up having this identical pinout. But reversing 568 and 568B is not a crossover cable. It coincidentally has the same pinouts as a crossover cable that would work on 10 megabit and 100 megabit Ethernet. But as soon as you go to gigabit Ethernet, now you have to cross over all 8 wires. And this obviously is not 568A on one side and 568B on the other side. Doesn't even come close. If you try to plug in a gigabit connection with a 568A on one side and 568B, what you may find is it working, but only running at 100 megabit because it automatically determined that the right wires weren't crossed and dropped you down to the most compatible speed for what you were using. So the only way to have a crossover cable with gigabit speeds is to use this pinout. It's incredibly important when you're working with crossover cables that you don't, and I've read this in books. Books will tell you to make a crossover cable, put 568A on one side and 568B on the other side. No, don't do that. Don't do it. It's wrong. It's a wrong way to think about it. It only works on some very specific instances. And at the end of the day, they're not the same thing. That's not how you make a crossover cable. And now we think that that's how you make a crossover cable, but it's not. You make a crossover cable by putting pins like this. That's the difference. It's a subtle difference, mind you. And as I mentioned, it was a little bit of a nit that I was picking with that. But that is indeed an important consideration with all these. You don't want to be in that situation. So this particular answer, I'm not going to pop over and show you all the answers that were coming through. But this Ethernet crossover cable answer, this is a 1000 base T crossover or a gigabit copper crossover cable. Yeah, everybody said crossover cable. I say you got it right. Well done. It was a fill in the blank, And I'm going to go with that. You got it absolutely correct. If you want to be super correct, I put a little star at the end of it. You said it was a gigabit crossover cable. And if you really, a star and a green check, you put a 1000 base T crossover, which was what it was with all of those. That is an important consideration with those. Make sure you know what all of those pieces are, and being able to work through them. It's a useful thing to be able to use these and have those crossover cables available. And by the way, if you are watching this study group for continuing education credit, one of the things that you're going to want to do is go to the top or the bottom of my website. There's a Contact Us link. And on that Contact Us link, you want to click there. It brings up a little form. Put in your name, put in your email address. Make sure that you say that this is the August 2016 Network Plus study group, and you want to give the special code word of crossover cable. And if you do that and send it to me, I will email you back sometime in the next week or so. Usually it takes me about 7 days to process these, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. I try to do them the day of the study group, but if you don't get it in the day of the study group, then it may take a little bit longer. And I'll send you back that email with the digital signature that says, aha, you must have watched this 1 hour of the study group. How else would you have known about the secret name and how to get that secret name to me? Indeed, that would have been exactly the way to do that. Well, we've come to the end of an hour's worth of these. We kind of spent some time on that route aggregation, didn't we? Maybe I talked too much about a SIEM, but we've got many other Network Plus study groups. You can always go back and watch the replay. In fact, if you watch the replay and I give you a continuing education code on the replay, you can send me the CEU request. That works as well because we have these codes. I know you watched the video. Or you can tune in live for the next one. Our next study group will be in September on Wednesday, September the 14th, the second week of the month. And you can, of course, join us for another live event where I ask these questions and you have these answers in here for me as well. Of course, we say it's over, but it's not really over. I always stay up for the next hour or so here live on the stream, and we'll talk about anything you want to talk about. I'll take questions. I'll open up phone lines. But if you do have to leave, you can always follow us, what we're doing on Twitter, ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter, or on YouTube. Put in ProfessorMesser.com/Google+/Instagram. You'll find me on all those social media sites. You can also find all of my course notes at ProfessorMesser.com/NPCN, Network Plus Course Notes. And of course, my thanks to GTS Learning and their live labs. You want to learn more about their live labs, go to ProfessorMesser.com/NetLabs. And you, of course, could do that. There is so much more that we are doing throughout the month. If you want to join us for another study group for A+, I usually do my A+ study group the first Wednesday of the month. The Network Plus is the second Wednesday. The Security Plus the third Wednesday. Are there going to be more study groups of different kinds? Who knows? I've actually considered that. One way to know when the next study group is, even if you're watching this in the replay, is always go to ProfessorMesser.com/calendar. I try to get the next month or so worth of study groups posted so you know exactly when that's going to happen. There's even a link in there you can click. You can put it on your own calendar. So it'll be able to have that there and be able to work through it. And of course, I couldn't do this without you. Thanks, everyone, for your ongoing support. Thank you for your emails. Thank you for your support by purchasing the course notes, by purchasing the videos and the other things that we have on our site. Would not be able to have this much fun and be on these streams without your ongoing support. Thanks very much. If you want to stick around for the next hour, I'll be taking your questions. If you have to go now, I can appreciate that as well. We want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Oh, I need some coffee. Need something for my throat. I forgot to take a vocal zone today. What's up with that? I should have done that. Okay, some questions quickly from the chat room. That crossover was a gigabit crossover that you would use, regardless of whether it's Cat 5e or Cat 6 or Cat 6a. If that wiring or barbed wire, if you have barbed wire that can support gigabit networking, I don't know that there is any, but let's say there was barbed wire that could support gigabit networking, you could use that exact pinout with barbed wire and you would be able to cross over a gigabit connection. So that was pretty good, I think. The difference between Proxy 6 and Proxy-6, I don't know what a Proxy 6 and Proxy-6 are. I don't know what you're talking about. Those sound like a network utility, but I don't think proxy is what you were shooting for there. I think you were thinking of something else. Well, IDSB on Network Plus or Security Plus, it's on both. There you go. Traceroute 6, that is different. Usually you'll find some of the Linux commands. There are some Linux commands like ping and traceroute where you can use a -6 and it will force it to use IPv6 when it's doing its ping. There's other commands like ping6 that have been written just for IPv6. So there's no difference really between what they're doing. It's just two different utilities. I mean, I'm going to have that there. That's all. There's no difference. It does the same thing. There's just different executables, different binaries to be able to do the same thing. So makes it easy. I guess we could think that in the past at some time maybe ping couldn't do IPv6, so they created a ping 6, and then the folks that wrote ping said, "Why don't we put that into ours?" And so they did, but I don't know. That's reasonable. That could happen. There's no coupon code to buy the online live lab. You automatically get the discount by following my link, which is professormesser.com/netlabs. And the discount is already built in. It's $99. You don't have to pay the $139 or $129 or whatever that is on the GTS Learning site. It's just already part of it. Somebody else earlier in the chat was saying that the discount code for the vouchers wasn't working. Always read through those red instructions on the page, and they will explain to you where things went awry for you, because the code is absolutely usable. Works great in all of those. Let's set up the phone lines, and I'll tell you a little story about how my day started. I put it on Instagram. I'll have to bring up my Instagram just to show you. Let's get rid of our crossover cables and things that are on here. My day was like, start this so you can see it. Where's my stuff on Instagram? Click me and click the little, there we go. Here's my day right there. That's how my day was. That's how my day started. Let's get the phone lines going. Get my shows up, host a show, and then I'll give you guys the phone numbers of where to go to log in and get all these going. Let me call in. And it wants me to do what?
Thank you for calling.
Well, you're welcome for me calling. And if I could, yeah, well, now I've pressed the wrong thing. And let's do this. I have to turn this down because someone will do a DTMF decode.
Enter your 6.
And then everybody will be the operator on the call-ins line. We don't want that. Welcome. There we go. So let me tell you the story. While I'm doing that, I'll give you, that's on Instagram, by the way. If you go to professormesser.com/Instagram, you'll see that lovely HDMI connection, or what used to be a cable connection on HDMI. Here's the phone number, 855-785-7545. Free on Skype, +1 855. It's free everywhere in the United States and on Skype, +1 855-785 RJ45. This connector, I have a big television that I use as the monitor. Whenever I'm here, I'm looking at you. Whenever you see me look up to here, I'm looking at the slides, or I'm looking at what comes next. My whole video switching controls are up there in front of me. They're just above the screen. You can see the bottom of it at the top of the screen. This is it. And this big television that's up here. And it's a big TV. It's like a 52-inch television, 50-inch. It's a big one. And it's on wheels. So I have it on this really nice cart. I bought this really big cart so that I would know there would not be a problem moving the cart around the studio. Because sometimes I've been thinking I might want it behind me. You ever see videos where someone's talking, they have a television behind them, and they get that on the video? That would be kind of nice to have the television up there. I've never done that, but I wanted the option. I can turn a wrench. I can put a wrench on, turn a screw at the top, and it moves the television up and down. It's a nice big stand. And I was moving it in place. I usually keep it behind me. I usually keep it underneath where this camera is. Hi, camera. Hi, you're back here in the corner of my studio. And I usually keep the television back there in the corner, just out of the way. And when I'm doing a live stream, I roll it. It's on wheels. I just roll it over in front of the desk, and there it sits. And I plug in all the cables I need to be able to send that signal in. And then when I'm done, I just roll it back. Well, I rolled it in today, and I'm looking at it, and it was kind of sideways. It was kind of not straight. Like, how can it not be straight? It's this stand that has a plate that goes up and down. That plate has hooks on it, and then I've put other bars on my television that go over the hooks. So, like, how can it can't be turned. So I went up to it to well, let me straighten it out, and the whole thing falls forward. Now, my hands are on it, on the sides, and now I've got this huge television that has a power cord and what used to be HDMI connected to it, but the HDMI pulled out immediately. And I was able to kind of put it on my knee and pull the power cord out and finally get everything back together. But that was a problem to get this. That was a big issue. Well, it turns out it was just a very bad way that it fastens to the board itself, to the plate that goes up and down. Just was not fastened very well. Hard to believe that these made in China things would not have thought about things falling off over time, but it didn't. So I was able to actually remove a spacer and put in different screws in place, and everything looks great now. It's really holding nicely, and it's not going to come down again. But that's why, alas, this HDMI cable didn't work very well after that. Pulled completely out. So fortunately, the HDMI interface is fine. I pulled out that connector. I plugged in a different HDMI cable into that same interface, and that's what I'm using right now. Yeah, it is this could have fallen while I was rolling it, and it would have destroyed the television, and I would have been so sad. Would not have been happy about that. So it's fine. It's all good. We worked okay with that. No, Steve's asking about a Ham Plus study group. Wouldn't that be nice? I've got all my equipment. Can't even see it back there, can you? I've got that the transceivers right there under the microphone. There it is, right there. Transceiver. It's an ICOM. Is it ICOM or is that the Yaesu? That's my Yaesu. One of the ones that I got in that government auction I was telling Steve about. And I've got the other one. The ICOM's around here somewhere. I think it's in the cabinet underneath there. And I need to hook them up. I don't have an antenna plugged into them at the moment. I need to get an antenna on that because I live in Florida. Headquarters for Messer Studios is in Florida. And of course, we tend to have storms come through Florida this time of year. So it's kind of good to have something in place to be able to handle that and work through those pieces. So that's why whenever I start putting all of my gear together, I always want to put an antenna. But there's not a lot of options in there for plugging things in. I'm going to have to get some very small antenna. I almost could put it in the ceiling. I have a very high ceiling that I built in this studio. Can't really see it here. I need another camera angle that can show you it's a vaulted ceiling because I have all of this equipment that is on rails that's above me. And then the lights and everything that you can't really see here because I've adjusted the camera down. The lights are connected to pantographs, which are on the rails. So the pantographs, they're kind of like an accordion. So you can push it up higher or you can pull it down lower and you can move it around the rails. It's a nice system, but be a perfect place to put an antenna up there. That's all I'm saying. And Steve knows what I mean. If there's a ham who's in the chat room, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I could put an antenna there. I might want to run an antenna up on that. Always good to have some other form of communication. Our mobile devices are great devices, but they don't work really well after a bad storm. So that's always a challenge with those and being able to work through them. Other questions. Where do you send the email for an hour of CEU? I tell you and when I give you the CEU code, I tell you how to send it. So that's part of the CEU. So that means that you watched the video and you listened to be able to do that and work through those. I really can't believe I caught the television and was able to unplug it. It was a thing because I actually caught it behind the stand. So when I caught it, I had the television, but between me and the television was a pole, was a stand. So I couldn't I couldn't pull the TV towards me because there was a pole in the way, and I couldn't get it over the pole because the power cord was still plugged in and it would not disconnect. So I had to kind of put my leg up and then kind of put it on my leg like I was a table. And then I was able to get one arm free and unplug the power. But boy, it really went through that HDMI. I bought a pack of HDMI cables very recently thinking, when am I going to use this? Well, today. I'm going to use one of those today and plug in the television because that was not going to work very well for this. For those of you that followed, I think last month I was talking about my streaming project where I have a bird feeder that's in my backyard, and it streams live 24/7, just a bird feeder. I don't know if there's any action going on right now, but we can, in fact, I'm going to look at it right now and we can see I got it. And it's really just rainy outside right now. Here is the current bird feeder. Is this an accurate time? No, this is going to catch up in a second. YouTube Live has this weird thing where it shows you the first 30 seconds of it. There it is. There's a live view of what's going on outside right now. No birds, just a feeder. Not much happening there. But this project is one where I put in a separate streaming server here in the studio, ran a PoE line, a power over Ethernet camera line out there. And so there's a camera that's right there that is watching for anything to come by. And we're going to be creating videos and putting it on a separate YouTube channel. It's all a completely separate project, completely separate domain. Has nothing to do with Professor Messer, but just kind of something fun for me and my kids to do. And they're going to edit some videos and put them on YouTube. And we're going to do some interesting things. They're building a domain. They're learning how to do the editing. Hopefully they can do some of these things in their future. And it's kind of neat to have it here because you can watch things going on all the time. And we even integrated some XML from the National Weather Service. So not only does it show the video itself, I have to adjust the time and the date because it's all scrunched up there, but it tells you what the weather is like, what the temperature is. It updates them automatically. So there's some neat networking technologies happening there behind the scenes. And so when I hooked this up last week, I found a routing bug with the router that Comcast gives me, which is their small business router. And we ended up having to get around it. We put two network interfaces in the streaming server, one that goes to the subnet where the camera is, and then a separate network connection that goes out to my local internet connection. And we got all of this and was able to take care of that. That's how we got around. So it's not really routing problems in my router anymore. I've effectively taken the routing requirement and putting it into the streaming server itself. And the streaming server's sending the traffic out the correct route to the internet. Using Windows 10 as the streaming server. Tried to use Linux, and there's just not a lot of tools or resources available in Linux to be able to stream like this. And the ones that were available didn't work very well. There's bugs. It would stream for an hour or two and then it would die. So I ended up having to install Windows, which was incredibly painful for me. Not because it was difficult, because it was very easy. I'm just running Windows. And I just don't like what Microsoft is doing with Windows these days. Not the operating system, because the operating system is working great. I don't like their business practices, which I think is a legitimate concern overall. But I got it running. I use XSplit to do the streaming. Works like a dream. Really has just been solid. So I can't talk badly about the operating system's usability or its reliability because it's been just solid. Running Windows 10 and XSplit works great. Could not be better. Who would have thunk to get that running? In the chat room, folks are complaining about squirrels. This is the bane of a bird feeder, or is at least in this part of the world, is squirrels. And there were squirrels, and we have a video of the squirrels jumping into the bird feeder. We actually I have a separate video stream. I should bring it up since we're talking about it. Separate camera that kind of looks at the bird feeders. Do I have one? So in the backyard, here's my backyard, part of my backyard. So this bird feeder used to be way over here. And the the squirrels would come up the tree. Let's do some PTZ control here. They come up the tree, and he would jump off of this tree and onto the bird feeder, because the bird feeder was right here. It was very easy. Clunk. You go right into it. So I went out and moved them this much farther, and now it's actually this tree they were jumping from. Now they can't make it over to the bird feeder anymore. So that was my very non-technical problem that had to get solved. But I think we've solved it for now, and we no longer have to worry about the squirrels getting into the bird feeder. But I have some great video that we're going to sync up of the squirrels kind of climbing up here. You can kind of almost see, you can see my Ethernet cable. I got to straighten this up because I just moved it. I got to tie it down with some, and I got to do that today or maybe tomorrow. It's so wet. They would climb up here and try to jump, and they would bong. They would hit the baffle that's in place because they can't get past this baffle. And so I have video that we're going to split screen of this with the straight in view of the bird feeder, and we'll hear it's like a gong, bong, as they were trying. They were so angry. But it's been a lot of fun. We've got a kind of combining technical with non-technical with the nature side of it, and doing that. It's true. We do have hummingbirds in our area. We've got a number of hummingbirds in our backyard, and this was the first go through. This was our first foray into this. In this view, by the way, the camera is actually in this birdhouse. You can see the front of this birdhouse doesn't have anything on the front of it. It used to have this plastic view. Took it off, and inside of there is an actual, it's just a camera. It's a security camera. And that's why I just have that security camera pointing at the bird feeder. So it looks just like a normal set of birdhouses. You know, so I got another birdhouse in the back. Here's another birdhouse, except it's not really a birdhouse. It's really a camera that I have there. I probably have some pictures of it that are in here too. I've got to write an article because we're putting this all on a website that you'll be able to go to anytime you'd like. And the website's going to have some of these pictures available, so you'd be able to have a look at what those look like too. Do I have a good one? Yeah, I think I do. A picture of this. I could probably airdrop this to myself if I had a browser up at the moment. There we go. Or maybe not. Maybe I can't. Would seem like a good idea, wouldn't it? We'll have to show that to you. I'll also have to send out the link once I get the article written for there. Question in the chat room is, will my Network Plus course notes be enough to pass the test? Nobody's single individual product should ever be considered enough to pass any exam. You should never use one single thing to study for an exam. You should use as many different things as possible. So don't take any single book. Don't take any single video course. Don't take any single set of course notes and think that's going to be everything you need to pass the exam. You should gather as many different things as possible. I've not written my Network Plus course notes to be everything you need to pass the exam. I've written my Network Plus course notes to be notes that have been made from my video course. That's all they are. Now, some people use them in conjunction with my videos, and people have told me, I just watched your videos, I just used your course notes, and I passed my exam. I don't necessarily recommend that unless you're someone who has a lot of experience already. I think that's probably a pretty good idea. But there's so many places to get free content these days. There's quite a bit of content on the internet, but don't forget about your local libraries. If you're in the United States, your local library has a lot of content. And a number of them have links back to technology publishers that can give you access to all of their latest books. You have access to all of their Network Plus books, their A Plus books, their Microsoft books, their Cisco books, their VMware. Everything's available. And in many cases, it's all electronic. So you don't even have to go to the library. You can use an app that's on your phone or an app on their website to be able to read the book and have everything available for no cost whatsoever. So make sure you take advantage of that and get those. A lot of people in the chat room are working through those challenges with figuring out what to get. Some of you already have your Network Plus and are saying, I need to find the next thing I'm going to do. This is a good time to figure that out. Once you get your Network Plus certification, now figure out what you like to do. If you want to go into security, do some security work. If you want to do database management, do some database management. Want to manage servers, maybe some Microsoft exams. Switches and routers, we can go to the Cisco side. Virtualization, get some VMware certifications. So you've got a lot of places to go once you get your Network Plus, because now you've got a good foundation of how all of these things work together. And now it's just building on that foundation. Now you understand that there's frames and packets going over the network, that all of these protocols are working together, that you've got these port numbers you have to deal with, that they all work together. There's too many developers out there that don't understand the nuances of networking. And the ones that do can really write some interesting applications and really write some good code. Same problem if you're managing databases. You need to understand how all of these databases communicate to each other. How can you protect them? How can you put a database in front of a application, but yet protect it with a firewall? How would you filter those things out? Unless you understood the networking side of it, you wouldn't have any idea how any of that operated and had available. So it's one of those things where you've really got the world branching out at that point. I think the A+ is a good technical foundation of how computers work. The networking piece, I think, is the next logical step, and it does, I think, fill in a lot of different things, but it also opens up the broadness of IT. Information technology is amazing because you can start in one place and just move off to others because it's all this very broad technical world. And every single part of this, every single thing that's associated with IT, there's a niche available. You can become an expert in almost anything, and you will have people wanting your services because it's very valuable to be able to have that there. The URL for the chat room, if you artwork, you need to use the chat room on a cell phone. I currently have a nice little chat that I'm trying out. If you go to professormesser.com/chat on a mobile device, and I mean a phone, not a tablet, but a phone, certain sizes of phones, puts it into a really nice format for mobile. So that may be a little nifty trick for some of you that are watching. professormesser.com/chat, I think is the one that I use. Let me make sure. professormesser.com/chat. Yeah, that's the one. Use that and you'll get access to all the chat rooms in this nice little easy to use format when you're on a mobile device, on a mobile phone. I don't want to say device because it doesn't work as neatly on tablet. It works normally on tablet. Whatever normal is. What is the normal after all for this? Question, when will the Network Plus questions be available? This is one of these things. I have always said that I'm not going to write any books. And that's because when I started into this world of online publishing, one of the first things I did was write a book on Nmap. And it was a very arduous process. There was a lot to write. There was a lot to learn about writing. There was a lot to format properly, and you have to double check everything because you're writing it down and people are reading it. So it's important to be correct. And I said, after doing that, boy, I'm never going to write another book again. Wow, that was enough for me for my lifetime. So, of course, last week I released a new book, which is my 220-901 pop quiz collection. I've written thousands of questions through the years, and I've written hundreds of new questions and updated hundreds of others and put them into this 220-901. This is for people taking their A+ exam. And I created a book just for the 220-901 exam that has 700 questions in it. It is massive. There's no other book out there that's got 700 questions in it because nobody's dumb enough to do that except for me. So I put in these 700 questions in this book. And of course, since I did a 901 book, I have to do a 902 book. And so I'm currently in the process of editing all of the questions, which have and building more for the 902 book so I can have another, 600 or 700 questions in that one. So there's going to be this massive number of A+ questions. So of course in the chat room, who Sam has to ask, when are the Network Plus practice questions going to be available? I would love to be able to create a Network Plus pop quiz collection. It probably won't be anytime soon. It's going to take me weeks just to finish up the 902 book because it takes a long time to read through all these questions. The 901 book took me about 4 months. And I think the 902 book is only going to take me 2 months because I know what I'm doing now. It's the same structure. It's actually a pretty interesting thing that we've got going. I don't write these out into like a word processing document. I create all the questions in a database. It's actually a series of relational databases where the question is in one database and the answers are in another, and I'm just creating relational links between them because I'm a technical person. That's how I write. I write by creating databases, and I just put all these questions into this database. And then when I'm ready to actually write the book, I have a Perl script that goes through the database, puts all the questions, randomizes them, puts them all together with all the HTML links. So I really just click a button and poof, I've got a 700-page book. Literally is how that works. It's quite remarkable. So the beauty of this, of course, is if I ever need to change anything, I need to modify some wording, I don't change it in a big document and have to update HTML links. I just change the database, click a button, it rebuilds itself. It's crazy. So now that part's already done. I've already built the Perl code. I've already got the database structures in place. I've got this web-based front end that I use to edit the database. So it's very easy for me to step through all the different pieces and get that done. So that's what I'm doing now with the 902 as I'm going through that database. I really should just sell the structure that I use to create the book. It's remarkable. Because anybody would be able to create their own books just by putting information in this web-based front end, and poof, it puts a book out on the other side. It's crazy. But it works so well that it just makes sense to do a Network Plus book, doesn't it? It makes sense to do a Security Plus book or a CCNT or a CCNA or a VMware or a Microsoft or whatever, because the structure is already there. So when will that happen? I don't know. I don't even know if it would happen this year. Because right after I do the 901 book, there are 2 other projects that are going on after that. Some of the projects are already starting, so there's a little overlap in the projects. So there's always something happening here. And I'm already looking 12 months out with projects. So I already know what's happening over the next 6 months at least, and sort of over the next 12. And I try not to go much farther than that. If you ever work with a company, they always want you to create a 3-year plan. And in my world, that's ridiculous, because what happens in 3 years, we don't even know yet what's going to happen in 3 years. This thing's happening way too fast in this business. I'm good to know the next 6 months and sort of the next 12, but the next 12, I've got some flexibility. I can switch things out if I want to, but certainly the next 6 months I've got locked down pretty well so far. And we'll see. I'd like to do as many as I can, but I am one human being. And one of the things that that is a watchword at Messer Studios is we don't want to create a product or a series of content that we're putting out to the world that is less than what it could be. What I have found, and you have probably found this too, is there are a number of technology publishers that give you just good enough. I think you've probably seen the Groupons that say, here's a A+ course, it's $20, and you get 20 hours of content. Well, you probably get $20 worth of content, quite honestly, because they give you just enough to be able to charge you $20 and take the $20 away from you. Our perspective is a little bit different. I'm not creating content because I'm trying to get you to buy things. I want you to get a better job, or I want you to get your first job. What are you going to need to be able to get that job? And then I create content that matches that. And although it's a subtle difference, I think it's an important difference. I want the quality of what I'm giving you to be the best that it could possibly be. I've got years of education as a formal education. I've worked as a corporate trainer. I've worked as systems engineers with very innovative internet startups. I've worked as technical marketing in some of the largest companies in the Silicon Valley. There are many skills that I can bring to you to help you get that job, because I know what employers are looking for. And at one time I used to manage systems engineers, and I know what I was looking for as a hiring manager. So what are you going to need to know? Let me bundle all of those things up for you and give them to you. So I don't just want to throw out, here's a Network Plus book. I don't think that helps anybody. I want it to be a book that really has good questions that make you think, that take you through multiple steps, that match the exam objectives perfectly, so that I'm not giving you questions on things you don't need to know or old things. I hate taking online tests and they're asking you about Windows 2000. Like, I don't need to know about Windows 2000. That's what I'm avoiding. I want to avoid anything like that. So it just takes longer. That's the thing. Any future prospects for Mac courses? I think Apple has a great series of certifications available. Unfortunately, the people that need Apple certifications is incredibly small compared to the people that need Network Plus certifications. And when I'm making decisions, my goal right now is not to hire a bunch of people and all of you go make courses, because you dilute the quality of the training when you do that. There's no way around it. There's no way you're going to be able to keep the same quality by adding a bunch of people and bringing it in and turning this into this massive behemoth. So I have to pick and choose exactly what I want to do. And it has to not only be something I'm interested in. I love Mac OS, so that'd be something fun to do. The problem is there's so few people that would ever watch it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, these lights cost money, the web servers have to keep running, and the family keeps wanting food and clothing and shelter for some reason. So I want to be able to give them that. And so probably an Apple course would not make sense. Now, if it was something that was, there's many different ways to do this, to do a course like this and make it cost effective and make it a good business decision. But it's much harder to do for those types of courses, much harder to do for something like an Apple course, because there's just so few people that would need to see it. And I want to get as many people their next job or their first job as possible. And the best way to do that is to make content that the most number of people would be able to use. So that kind of puts you in my head. That was more of a business conversation, really, than a technical conversation. But I think that gives you a perspective of where I'm coming from with those topics. It becomes a little more challenging to make that happen. And finding out the right thing. So I love that people will ask me, though, are you doing this next? I'd love to see this. I want you to give me your suggestions. Give me your ideas. Tell me what you're seeing out there in the world. I have a very myopic view. I sit in this room and it's dark and I work on a book and I do this for months and I watch online and I try to gather information as much as I can, but I can't know everything. And I'm always constantly doing market research. There's never a time when I'm not doing research. Everything I do is market research so that I can understand what people are looking for. So I go to a lot of other third-party sites. I look at a lot of other forums. I look at a lot of different things people are saying to try to figure out what makes the most sense for the next thing I want to do. Because we could do anything. This is it's a lot of fun, and I want to do something that's fun, that you'll like, that people will be able to make use of, that you'll be able to use to get your first job or get a better job. That's the goal of everything that we do. It's really an important piece of it. There's very few times when I'm not thinking about that. I took the family on vacation for a week a couple of weeks ago. It was in a place where we were just away from the computers for a week. We were away from the streams for a week. I didn't have to create a set of content for a live stream for a week. We just kind of hung out and looked at the sky and looked around us and thought, what should we do? What's the next step? And come up with our plans for the next 6 months. It's always good, I think, to get away from the normal, stretch your mind a little bit, maybe let it relax, and see what it does. And it's surprising what you come up with. What if we did this? What if we did that? And you let that stew for a little bit. It's pretty interesting. What I think of Raspberry Pi, I love the Raspberry Pis, the different Pis that you can get. Got a few different models of Pis these days. I like that people have come up with these very niche uses for the Raspberry Pi and that they're building content for it. That can only be a good thing. And I like that it's kind of a put it together yourself. One of the neat things that I did with the streaming server is we bought all the different parts and me and my daughter built the streaming server. I think these are great things to use to be able to learn how all of this technology works. It's always fun to put it together yourself. You can tell somebody, yeah, I built this. I got all these parts and we put together and I put it in this case and I loaded the software and I connected it to this thing and now it runs my sprinkler system, or now I have a camera in my house for security, or now it does the media streaming from one central place in my house. Those things are awesome. I love those types of little projects. One of the things that first got me interested in amateur radio, we were talking about ham radio earlier and my transceiver that I had back there. One of the things that first got me is I built my own key. You know, the people think Morse code is the single key. I really built my first paddles is what they were. These days when people are doing Morse code, you could use a straight key, which I do have one of those, but most people are using paddles. It's just two paddles, and one paddle is the di and one paddle is the da. They're not dots and dashes in what they call continuous wave or CW. It's di and da is the language. And it's a very easy way because now you're not pushing up and down to do this. It's all kind of electronically generated, and you just tell the electronic generator, send a di or send a da. And you can hold it down to do more of them and pick it up to stop. It's that kind of thing. And I built my own paddles, and it was fun. And I plugged it in, and it worked. You do your own soldering, and you put together the case, and they send everything, and it's a piece of metal, and you're putting it together, and you got this piece of equipment that works great. So I love those kinds of projects. I think more people should do them. Congratulations, guest 878 took your Network Plus Monday and passed with a good score, 795, and you used the videos and course notes. Congratulations. That's got to be a good feeling, right? You got Plus out of the way. Now you know more acronyms than you ever knew in your life because you passed the Network Plus exam. That's one of the things we do really good on the networking side is we have lots of acronyms with networking, because with networking, you put in a network and it's there forever. It's never going away. We were talking in the study group today about V35 and RS-232 on our CSU DSUs. And people in the chat were talking to me like, are you crazy? What are you talking about? That's ancient technology. Yes, and we're installing them today. It is ancient technology. It's been around forever, and it still continues to be installed. There are plenty of places to buy your new CSU DSU so you can plug in your WAN link. That is one where, and that means we just keep adding to the acronyms. CSU DSU, all right, that one's locked in for the next 50 years. What's another acronym? Let's do a new one. And every time we come up with a new acronym, we just add it to the pile. We don't get rid of any of the acronyms. And so Network Plus, I often say, is just one big acronym exam that you have to know for that. Windows Geek in the chat asks, do you think anyone is seeking the MCSA? A series of video on that. Microsoft is absolutely a consideration. There's a number of there's a number. If you listed out the number of Microsoft certifications, I've done this before, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Microsoft certifications. Now, granted, there's probably 10 that are the most popular, but there is a lot of dilution there, which means that unlike Network Plus, where everybody knows the Network Plus is there and they all go after the Network Plus, what if the Network Plus was split up into 10 different exams? Right? Which one would I do? So you could see that I'd have to do 10 of them to equal what one normally would be. It's a similar scenario with Microsoft, is that everything is split between not just operating system and server, but there's Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, and then Server 2003, there's Server 2008, Server 2012. You get the idea. So now you're splitting things up so much that you'd have to spend all this time creating a course, but at the end of the day, you thought you were creating a course for this big piece of pie, an entire pie, and what you really got was a single slice. And that becomes a little bit more of a challenge from a content creation perspective and being able to create something that everyone would want to see. It would probably have to be a server technology, I would think, to be able to do that. And it's on a list somewhere. I do have a list. It's a big list of all the things that I'm looking to do. But there's no Microsoft course that's very high up in that list because of all the dilution associated with that. Instead, I've kind of thought maybe I should do, Microsoft has some entry-level certifications. Maybe those would be better to do. It's hard to tell with Microsoft because it's so diluted. I just look at all the numbers I get because it's hard to get numbers. Microsoft doesn't share how many people are getting what certifications. So you kind of have to go out into the world and do some Google searches and Google research and forums and other places. And you're trying to figure out which one of these certifications is the most popular. And when you find it, you're like, that's not that popular, relatively speaking to other things out there. Probably the opposite of that are things like Cisco certifications. Cisco has a very specific path, and they do have, how many certifications has Cisco really got? 12, 14? It's not a ton of certifications. So they are very specifically focused on certain groups of people, and their entry-level certifications are extremely popular. So they go higher in the list. That's how it works. And then there's this clock on the wall that only has 24 hours, and then you have to figure out how your list is going to fit into that clock. A little bit more of a challenge. And there's other things in the world that are going on with those pieces and having them there. It's always a challenge to figure out what's next, especially when there's new stuff coming out all the time. CompTIA is working on a new security certification. It's currently in a beta mode. They're doing beta testing. People are taking the test now where they give you every question that's in the question pool. You sit down, it's like a 4-hour process to sit for that exam and take it. And people said, hey, are you doing that one? Except there's nobody taking that exam yet. There's exactly 0 people working towards that certification at the moment. So no, I will not be. But these things change every day. Tomorrow, that may be the most popular exam ever. And of course I would do that. It's one of those things in my world. It just happens very quickly. And it's good that there's no real committee involved. I'm the president of the company, and I have a vice president who I'm married to. So we just kind of hang out and go, what if we did this? Yeah, that sounds pretty good. All right, let's do that. There's not a lot of back and forths. There's not a lot of politics involved. There's not a committee to go in front of. That's why I will never have that level of nonsense to work with. I've already done that. I've already worked with the big companies. I've worked with some of the largest technology companies in the world. I've worked for some of the startups in the technology era that have gone on to be extremely successful. I am never going to do that again, which is why I'm doing this. I always tell people, if you don't like what you're doing, come up with a concept of what you'd like to do. My concept was I want to sit in a room and make some videos and not wear any shoes. That's it. And work at home. That was it. Done. Now, how do I get there? And it took 8 years to put together that plan, execute on the plan, and get to a point where that's all we were doing. So it wasn't overnight, but you have to come up with the plan first and then work towards that final goal for those pieces. And then, then absolutely. So somebody's watched my videos because Alyssa's chat room asking if I play WoW, and I do. In fact, I just logged in after the latest patch last night and ran through some of the preliminary stuff for Legion. And I'm excited because I usually will play, or I used to play a holy priest, which makes sense, doesn't it? Because I am the epitome of holy priest. And in the latest versions, prior to this big patch, holy priest was not really looked upon very well. It's kind of a weak player. Didn't have a lot of offense. And now as you folks that are involved with World of Warcraft know, they kind of scrambled up everything across all of the different classes. It's almost a new game now. And I got in there last night and played around with it and was really excited that I've got a viable build with a holy priest that I can go into 5-mans or raids or just questing around, and I don't have to keep flipping back to Shadow Priest and then back to Holy. Or people didn't like you being Holy when you were in a 5-man or in a raid. They wanted you to be Discipline, and I didn't like Discipline. So what do you do? So there you go. There's my World of Warcraft story for the day. So I spent some time last night, took an hour, from midnight to 1 a.m. and carved that out and went through some of the preliminaries, the cutscenes, the story up to this point. Was not expecting that. Big spoilers there. I'm not even going to talk about it. You absolutely have to work through this first section before Legion hits and get the story because, oh my gosh, that happened kind of thing. So that's one of the things that's up. Okay, you play Holy Priest. So I'm pretty happy with those changes too. I like what they've done. I like the fun. The fun is back in the spec again. And I'm going to try to just do Holy. I don't want to go back to Shadow. I don't want to play Discipline. I'm going to see if I can stick with Holy. And I think it's entirely possible in this latest build with the different settings that they've got there. I'm looking forward to some of the additions. I've already pre-purchased Legion, and we're going to go get our legendary weapon and see what we can do. I'm looking forward to that. It's a nice respite away from book writing all day, or I got to write pop quizzes for the week or that kind of thing. So it's good. I think last month I was thinking I was going to get an extra week, and it's really this month. I get an extra week because I do these on Wednesdays. And this month I did one Wednesday the 3rd. Today's the 10th. I do one on the 17th for Security Plus next week at this time. And then I got 2 weeks with nothing. So, and then Legion comes out at the end of the month. So perfect timing. Kind of get ready for that and go up to those pieces and get those ready. It's one where I wish I could do more gaming. There's just not enough time. There's not enough time in the day for all the other projects that we've got going on. I've now got 3 people that are working here, and they all have different projects, and we're all working towards a single set of goals with these projects and trying to get them all together. So I'm trying all kinds of different management tools as well. I think we're going to be doing a lot more base camp now with project-based kind of group project. Even though there's 3 of us, we can still take advantage of the number of tools there because none of us are in the same place. For me, I wanted to build a company where you could really be anywhere. You could live anywhere and work here. And that's what we've done so far, is that the people that work here are not in this room. They're somewhere else. And in some cases, other side of the country, somewhere else, and can go anywhere they want and still continue to do this. So you need some way to put this all together. And I've been playing around with Basecamp, and I really like it. Very, very useful. Some really good stuff in there. Kind of pulls everything together. I didn't realize it, but when I worked for the Next Generation Firewall company, which was my job just prior to doing this full time, I was working with a partner, and we were doing an evaluation. I was showing a customer the incredible power in this firewall, and these evaluations take a number of weeks. And he set everything up in Basecamp and shared it all with us, and we were able to add documents, and the customer was able to see what was going on, and we set time frames, and it really was an amazing thing to see. Oh, we have a visitor, so just wanted to show you that. This is what's going on in my backyard right now. There we go. It's a good filler right there. I really like the Basecamp, though. That's what I would use to be able. Yeah, it could be anywhere. You can be a different country. Why not? It's the internet, right? It could be any time of day, because the only person that's really time of day wise watching what's going on or doing things time of day wise, well, nobody. Nobody in this company works on the only life thing is really this. This is the only time of day thing that you would have, and that's why. It's useful for me to be on a particular schedule with these live streams. But other than the live streams, you just need to do what you need to do whenever you can do it. So it could be 12-hour difference from where I am right now. It just doesn't matter. So there goes that. Is that a cardinal that just stopped by? I think it was. So there's the rain is stopping out there, and we didn't lose power. So I know. So now everybody wants to work for me, so that they can do those. That would be fun. I don't have any open recs at the moment. I have no budget for additional FTEs, so that will be something that will have to wait. I don't know that it will grow too much more than what we're doing now. My goal is to not grow. I have the weirdest company ever. I don't want to grow because I want to keep a certain level of quality. And if we grow, it will be very, very, very slowly. So I would not do well in the fast-paced entrepreneurial world of the Silicon Valley technology startup kind of thing, because I don't believe any of that's really worthwhile. Well, I won't say it's not worthwhile. There are some extremely worthwhile things about being in a startup and growing a company. But for this kind of business and what my goals, personal goals are, I'll be growing very slowly, if at all. There'll be some growth, but very, very slowly for that to work out. I just think it makes sense. It's all the better to have that there. Other things that happened, I put together and loaded up this server that I've got into my rack this past week, and I'm filling out what I call my data center, which is a single 19-inch rack that I've built a room for. And we're putting more things in the rack. I've got another power over Ethernet switch that I added to that. So I've got a couple of Cisco switches that are in the rack. Both of them support power over Ethernet because I have a lot of cameras and things that are all over the place at my house, in my studio, outside. You've seen a number of these, and I needed another one for this bird feeder project and being able to put that in there. But it's great having the power over Ethernet capabilities, and I got them in very small switches because one of the things that's a concern for me is that I don't want any noise. This needs to be quiet so that it's a good experience for you. There doesn't need to be this big thing with a bunch of fans rolling in the back. And so whenever I'm putting together my switches and my servers, they're all being put together with sound in mind. Now I've got a door, so I could close the door, but I don't want to have to do that. So I did a couple of things. First was I got a Cisco switch for voice over the power over Ethernet, and the PoE switch is an 8-port switch, and I didn't get one bigger than that because the larger ones have a fan. The 8-port is fanless. It only has heat sinks, so it's completely silent, which is perfect. That's what I want. That worked out really well too. The other thing I did, let me find the exact product that I used for this because I want to, it works so well. I bought a big case, a big rack mountable server. It was actually 4U high. It's a big one. I really didn't need all that space, but I wanted one that would cool easily for the reason of sound. I didn't want to have to put a bunch of fans in. You ever turn on one of those really tiny 1U high servers and they sound like a freight train or an airplane is landing? I didn't want to do that either. So one of the things I did was get some different fans for the server. And the fans I used, which ones were they? I think they were ones from, not from there. Let me find the fans I put in because they were great. The problem was I went through and looked at probably 1 million fans. And whenever you're doing these projects, you're trying to find the fan that is going to pull the most amount of air through the server. But you also want to be quiet because that's your primary engineering goal with this, was to be able to do this as well. So it becomes a little more of a challenge. Which ones were they? I thought I had the fan case out here. Oh, I know where I bought them from. I have to remember, where did I buy all these fans from? And I think I ended up getting them from, normally I get them from Amazon. I had to get them from Newegg because they were just not available. I needed 6 120 millimeter fans, and I needed 2 80 millimeter fans. It's a big case, and I wanted to replace all the ones in there. So I ended up using a fan from Be Quiet. No, I'm not telling you to be quiet. That's the name of the company, is Be Quiet. Where are they? They are right here. So here's Be Quiet's website. What products do you have? Community service. Where's your stuff? Oh, here we are. I used case fans, and I got their Silent Wings 2, I think is the one I used. Is this the quietest one they have? Probably. I think this is the one I used. So these are amazing. They're 15.7 decibels, which is, as they say on their website, virtually silent. Extremely quiet fans. and they are remarkable because I had the stock case fans in, and I had the box was sitting in the studio. I don't know if you were watching some of the earlier streams. It was just on a table that was just sitting in here, and I would turn it on, and you could hear it. Like it was humming. It wasn't incredibly loud, but it was humming away. And I took out every single one of those fans. I put in these completely Silent Wings 2 fans. Silent. They turned on. I thought, is it running? I had to get a flashlight. Are they working? Is it spinning? Yeah, they were. If you listen carefully, you can hear them, but you really had to listen in. Imagine 6 of those big fans and 2 of the smaller fans in one computer, and you can barely hear it. Amazing product. I was so impressed. And they're these 3-wire fans, so I'm plugging them into my motherboard that I'm using. The motherboard has 3 fan controllers built into the motherboard. So I ended up having to get a splitter, a 3-wire splitter that would plug into these, and then I'd plug my fans into the splitter so that I could run 3 of the fans on one interface, 3 of the fans on another fan interface, and there's 2 smaller fans on a third fan interface. And boy, the motherboard picked it up and ran with it perfectly. And so it's able to monitor temperature and then spin the fans up if it ever gets too warm in there, and then spin them back down, all controlled from the motherboard rather than a separate fan controller, which was ideal. Boy, that worked out perfect. Have I ever thought of doing a podcast? I have not really. I used to have a podcast that I did with my vice president that I did called What a Week, where we would just talk about things that happened during the week. Not really news, but things that were not so newsy, things you wouldn't see in the news, things that weren't political, things that were a little off kilter. For instance, there was a zoo that was doing a promotion of their cockroach display, and they were selling chocolate cockroaches. So we bought some and ate them on the podcast. They were chocolate. It wasn't like there was no real cockroach there. It was just milk chocolate. That was a little bit odd one that we did. Or we talk about things that were happening in space, things that new things that they discovered during the week that none of us heard about and were amazing. But the what they call the mainstream media, if you will, doesn't pick up on those because there's no viewership on. They found this really interesting thing on Mars. They don't really talk about it on CNN. They don't talk about it. If you look around, there's got to be a What a Week cockroach. There's got to be a video of us eating the cockroaches somewhere. That's going to be a tough one to find. If somebody reminds me, I'll have to tweet out about the What a Week podcast. I'll find the video somewhere. It's got to be still on Amazon, on YouTube. I don't delete anything. Am I vegan? Nope, not vegan. I can eat cockroaches. Ooh, I am not vegan. If you're vegan, rock on. I don't care, but I am not. That was good. That fits with the cockroach conversation, doesn't it? Just perfect. And what did I do? I did something, and we sent one of them to somebody. We sent one of the chocolate cockroaches. I forget what we did. This was a couple years ago. There's always somebody that finds these things with the chocolate cockroaches. But that was a lot of fun. But we were doing that every weekend, and it's tough to do a podcast. You have to do them all the time. You can't really skip. And this is sort of my podcast. If you want to look at it that way, I don't have it as an HTML or an RSS feed. We just don't do it that way. I just put them on YouTube, and you're welcome to watch. I really should at least take the audio and stick it into an RSS feed and something easy. These days it's so easy. You can do SoundCloud, and boom, you've got it. I saw that Windows Geek in the chat room had a new Windows podcast he wanted to do. He just got a mic, talked into it, stuck it on SoundCloud, did all the RSS for him. It was brilliant. So you'll have to come into the chat room. I wish I had the link for that. I'm so sorry. I wasn't even thinking we were going to talk about that today, or I'd have that link. We'll check next time. I'll tell everybody about the Windows Geek and his podcast. But there's just so many moving parts with a podcast that we just haven't done one. I think it would actually be a good idea to take the study groups and make them a podcast, put them into an RSS form, put them on iTunes so people can find them yet another way. I think that's a great idea. But it's the distribution that's the challenge, and finding a cost-effective way to distribute a video to all of those people becomes a little more challenging, a little more of an issue. Yeah, Windows Geek, if you want to post in the chat room, you're more than welcome to post that. So I guess YouTube is the best way to watch everything I create, and I hope maybe I'll have some time to do something that is online and available for people to do in iTunes. If a lot of people, you tell me, if you think you would better watch this if it was on iTunes or in your RSS reader or your podcaster, tell me. We'll do that. So soundcloud.com/TechWorksTechRadio. TechWorks Tech Radio. Write it all out. And you'll get the Windows Geeks podcast. TechWorks Tech Radio. Like networks, but TechWorks Tech Radio. All one word. We need to get you like a bit.ly for that, brother. You know what I'm saying? There is... Yeah, I have podcasts on my phone too, and podcasts I do all the time in iTunes as I'm editing the book or creating pop quizzes for the week. I've always got a podcast going. There's always something running there, and it's usually sometimes it's technical, sometimes it's about security, sometimes it's about World of Warcraft. It just depends on the mood that I'm in. So I get the value of having that in a podcast form, and I think it would be very good, but I just haven't sat down and thought it through. So based on that, I'm going to my Trello right now, and I'm creating a new list called podcasting. And now I've got a new list for that. I'm going to add a card for research. So there's my to-do for podcasting. And I did add one, if Torque is watching, add the lower third for Socrative. I've got that in my Trello as well for that particular project. Yeah, and I listen to some of those too. I'd listen to Security Now as well, and get some of those things. Takes me back to the security world of the things when I used to be installing the firewalls and configuring the firewalls and doing the migrations and clearing out the policies and setting up the SIEMs and the VPNs and the IPsec tunnels and all of that. It's good stuff. D in the chat room asks a question that it's a very common one. Can someone with zero computer knowledge learn Network Plus? Yes. Will it be difficult? Yes. It will be very difficult. But you can. People have. There is no specific or official or required set of prerequisites for the A+, the Network Plus, or the Security Plus exam. But CompTIA recommends that you have at least, I think, 6 months of some industry experience, something that you've done in networking to be able to really get into the Network Plus exam and perform your best. Have people taken the exam and passed with no experience whatsoever? Yes, they have. Was it difficult? Yes, it was. Am I asking questions of myself? Yes, I am. I don't like that when people do that, so of course I do that. It's tough. It's hard to do that because you're jumping into a world that has its own language and its own set of weirdnesses, and you have to kind of get into those. It may take you a little longer, but I think if you take it a piece at a time, you can absolutely learn Network Plus and get those there. I think it's useful to have there. I think the podcast stuff would be good. Maybe I don't think this works as a audio only podcast. Maybe it does. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong or not. I don't think it works just as an audio only podcast. Maybe the after show might, but the normal show I think really does need to be a video podcast, which means it all needs to get edited. There's no editing really other than re-rendering it down to something that is more compressed in a smaller file that people could download, because 2 hours of a video Even with H.264 at minimum bandwidth usage is still pretty big. That's still a big file. And maybe I do the normal show and I do an after. Well, it's still an hour of content. So that becomes a little more challenging too. It's not challenging in doing that. The challenging part is finding a distribution site for it that's going to be cost effective. You can put it on Amazon. It's going to cost you every time someone downloads, but it's a very small amount. It's a penny every time, or half a penny every time someone downloads that video. The problem is that pennies, 1 million, 2 million pennies, suddenly you're talking about some money. I would love to have that kind of problem, of course, but there's a cost associated with it. You get into some other types of distribution systems where you might pay $5 a month, but you can only upload a certain amount of content every month. And if you upload more than that, you're going to have to pay more every month, which is still relatively cost effective because they don't charge you by the download. They charge you by the upload. But it still becomes a challenge because video is so big. So I tried this with What a Week when doing the previous podcast. That was a video-based podcast and audio. And the video part required us to buy a higher level of upload because they were just so big. And I've gotten video down pretty good at this point where I can size it and find the right set of rendering values that will give you a good video. You'll probably wouldn't even know it's compressed as badly as it is. It's a really nice looking video with very good audio, but it's as small as it could possibly be. So that's one of those where it's a constant give and take to try to figure out those pieces and make it work. Okay, well, we've come to what has got to be, we're at the end of our second hour. So at this point, I think it's a good place to stop. I think that's, I've given you some tasks that you can now send me emails and get things back to me so we can figure out what the next steps are going to be with this crazy world that we are in and doing these study groups and new content. I wouldn't be able to know what to do next if you didn't tell me. So always keep those cards and letters coming. And remember, you can always go to my site, click on the Contact Us link, which is really contact me. Really just go straight to my phone. So that's the way to do it, is go to the website and just tell me. Or go in the chat. I'm in the chat all the time. So not 24/7, not all the time, but a lot. I am in there to be able to work through this. More supernetting and more subnetting. There's some interesting subnetting things I'm working on for the future as well, which would be kind of fun to do. And I will go play some Demon Hunter, Alyssa. I'm a Horde on Earth and Ring if anybody wants to join in. There is so much more happening throughout the month. So many other things. Don't forget about the next Network Plus study group on September the 14th, a month or so from now. A week from now, next week at this time, is my Security Plus study group. You don't want to miss that either. And of course, there's things we're doing all the time here. You're always welcome to stop by the website, say hello, and find out what in the world is going on in my world. So I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Thank you for your ongoing support of what we're doing here at Messer Studios. We would not be able to do it without you. And we will see you next month on the Network Plus Study Group. Thanks, everyone.